The first piece I'll be discussing is the war detail from the Standard of Ur. This piece is only one side of the standard. The other panel is known as the peace side and shows the organized society of the people of Ur. This piece is divided between 3 registers, each representing a different level of society. The lowest depicts common laborers carrying heavy packs on their shoulders. In the middle, there are attendants leading cattle and goats, and at the very top, the tall figure of a king stands out, with his head breaking the frame of the register itself. He is surrounded by ministers raising their cups in celebration. The opposite side of the Standard of Ur is a clear representation of warfare. At the bottom register, war chariots run down fleeing soldiers. At this time, war chariots were one of the most effective weapons of the battlefield. With archers or javelin throwers alongside drivers, they were able to cut down infantry with ease. In the middle register, a line of soldiers stand in formation with their hands on their swords. In the center, there is a massacre as prisoners from the enemy army are slaughtered by the victorious soldiers of Ur. Lastly, in the top register, a familiar figure, the king, is at the very center and is the largest figure in this entire piece, a representation of his power. This final register shows the humiliation of the survivors of the enemy's force in the aftermath of their defeat in front of a victorious king. Undoubtedly, the war side of the Standard of Ur depicts a massacre, not a battle, as an excellent example of ancient propaganda. Not once are the enemy soldiers shown fighting back. They are shown as cowards, or helpless in the face of the military might of Ur. The king is shown to be the centerpiece of this power of his army, and this element is shared in the next piece I'll discuss. The Alexander Mosaic is an incredible piece depicting one of the most renowned battles in ancient history, the Battle of Issus, during Macedonian King Alexander the Great's war with the Persian Empire. This piece is a mosaic, meaning it's made up of many small fragments of colored stone and glass, up to 1 million in this piece, which are placed together to form images. Unlike the Standard of Ur, where the historical context is somewhat vague, the Alexander Mosaic depicts the Battle of Issus, where Alexander the Great's army moved into Syria from Anatolia and was met by a much larger Persian army under King Darius III, the last ruler of the Achaemenid Empire. The scene the mosaic depicts is the most crucial moment of the battle, as Alexander's men have made several attacks on the Persian army, which were beaten back until he saw King Darius on his chariot and led a surprise charge directly towards the king. At this fateful moment, King Darius, caught off guard, is calling on his men to retreat as Alexander rolls down on him in a thunderous charge. Their gazes meet, the two kings and military leaders only a few feet away, as the tide of battle changes in the favor of the Greeks. This turn of the tide of battle and the most glorious moment of the battle for Alexander is forever captured in this great mosaic. Although at first glance, these two pieces are visually very different, they are strikingly similar in their symbolism, despite the massive gap between them. Both the war side of the Standard of Ur and the Alexander Mosaic portray a king victorious in battle. However, they differ in their portrayal of both war and triumph. In the Standard of Ur, the enemy soldiers are never shown fighting back or defending themselves in any way. In the bottom register, they are being trampled upon by war chariots. In the second register, they are being cut down helplessly by soldiers from Ur. And at the top, they are being led in bondage to the king figure. There is no semblance of a battle, just a simplistic display of conquest and humiliation, and a symbol of the king's power. In the Alexander Mosaic, the symbolism is much more dynamic. Alexander is not fighting a faceless enemy, but the Persian army, and there's much more humanity present in this mosaic. The driver of King Darius' chariot is turning the horses around in a desperate attempt to flee the charge from Alexander's cavalry, and the two black horses are seen reeling, almost leaping into the air at the sudden change of direction. Below, a Persian soldier sees his own reflection in the inside of his shield in his last moments. A few of King Darius's guards attempt to fend off the Greeks to buy time for their leader to escape. The most striking element of this piece is still the shared look between Alexander and Darius. King Darius has an expression of fear and hopelessness as he reaches out toward Alexander, who has an expression of steel determination as he ensures victory for his army. Both pieces are incredible works of art, but in the depiction of warfare and the violence and suffering within it, the Alexander Mosaic is far superior.